Arise, giving the Most High honors, or the Most High praise to Allah, and the highest honors to His Prophet Noble Dryly. I like to read from Circle 7, chapter 12. And the title of that chapter is Jesus Teaches the Common People at a Spring and Tells Them How to Obtain Eternal Happiness. Verse 1 says, In silent meditation, Jesus sat beside a flowing spring. It was a holy day, and many people of the servant caste were near the place. And Jesus saw the hard-drawn lines of toil on every brow and every hand. There was no look of joy in any face. Not one of all the group could think of anything but toil. But Jesus spoke to the one and said, Why are you all so sad? Have you no happiness in life? And the man replied, We scarcely know the meaning of that word. We toil to live and hope for nothing else but toil. And bless the day when we can cease our toil and lay down and rest in Buddha's city of the dead. And Jesus' heart was stirred with pity and love for these poor toilers. And he said, Toil should not make a person sad. Man should be happiest when they toil. When hope and love are back of toil, then all of life is filled with joy and peace. And this is heaven. Do you not know that such a heaven is for you? The man replied, Of heaven we have heard, but then it is so far away, and we must live so many lives before we can reach that place. And Jesus said, My brother man, your thoughts are wrong. Your heaven is not far away. It is not a place of metes and bounds. It is not a country to be reached. It is a state of mind. Allah never made a heaven for man. He never made a hell. We are creators and we make our own. Now cease to look for heaven in the sky. Just open up the windows of the hearts, and like a flood of light, a heaven will come and bring a boundless joy. Then toil will be no more a cruel task. So this to me is saying, basically, we have to create our own heavens and hells. Or we have to create our own heavens, and we create our own hells by what we think. Now, I also like to go to chapter 7, verse 9. I'll start at verse 8. It says, All things that can be seen all things that can be seen by human eyes are manifest of aught, are not, and so must pass away. The things we see are but reflexes, just appearing, while the ethers vibrate so, and when conditions change, they disappear. So I'll read verse 9 again. It says, The things that we see are but reflexes. So I'll ask, they're reflexes of what? What are they reacting to? The things that we see are reacting to what we think. And we as thinking things, we have the power to basically create our own reality, to create, like our brother Jesus said, our own heavens and our own hells. And I'll read also in this chapter, it says that it describes what power is. And this is our brother Jesus speaking to Lamas. And if we go down to verse 14, it says, Again Lamas asked, What do you say of power? And Jesus said, It is a manifest. It is the result of force. It is but not. It is illusion, nothing more. Force changes not, but power changes as the ethers change. Force is the will of Allah and is omnipotent. And power is that will and manifest directed by the breath. There is a power in the winds, a power in the waves, a power in the lightning stroke, a power in the human arm, a power in the eye. The ethers cause these powers to be. And and thought of Elohim, of angel, man, or other thinking things directs the force. When it has done its work, the power is no more. So this basically tells us that we have the ability to direct the force of Allah. And that's what gives us power. When you're pure and when you're righteous, you have that ability to direct the force of Allah as a thinking thing. So just to read a little bit about being pure, our harbinger, our forerunner, LamadahYah Bey, brought us that concept of purity, of race pride, of loving your own, of having a fixed mind to overcome certain things. And as the harbinger of our brother Jesus, John says, I'll read through chapter 4, and I'll start at verse 8. And this is Matheno speaking to our brother John after the passing of his mother. A crisis in your life has come, and you must have a clear conception of the work that you are called to do. So again, that clear conception of what we're called to do as Moorish Americans, or as a Christian, or as a person of the Nation of Islam, do you have a clear conception of the work that you're called to do? The sages of the ages call you harbinger. The prophets look to you and say, he is Elijah, come again. Your mission here is that of harbinger. For you will go before the Messiah's face to pave his way and make the people ready to receive the king. The readiness is purity of heart. So that purity of heart is that oneness of heart. We make decisions sometimes, we think we may make them from our brain, but a lot of times those decisions come from our heart. And based on what we think or based on what we feel, that is what will manifest. So we can manifest heaven or we can manifest hell. None but the pure in heart can recognize the king. To teach men to be pure in heart, you must yourself be pure in heart, and word and deed. So that's being pure in our actions, or being Muslims in our actions, being of peace in our actions and our words to each other and our deeds. In infancy, the vow for you was made, and you became a Nazarite. The razor shall not touch your face nor head, and you shall not taste the wine or fiery drinks. Men need a pattern for their lives. They love to follow and not to lead. And this is an important verse for our leaders, because we are put up as an example, especially as us Moorish Americans, or those who have a certain standard or set a certain standard in our community, whether you're a member of the Nation of Islam, a leader of a Christian community, a church, a pastor, an imam. Men need a pattern in their lives, and we have to come to set that pattern. And even if you are somebody who feels like you have a lot of influence over a large following, you have to, of course, be pure in word and deed, and in word and deed, and be pure in your heart. The man who stands upon the corner of the paths and points the way, but does not go, is just a pointer, and a block of wood can do the same. The teacher treads the way. On every span of ground he leaves his footprints clearly cut, which all can see, and be assured that he, their master, went that way. So this is what was being taught to our brother John. He was the harbinger. He paved the way for the people to come to love made manifest our brother Jesus, as did Marcus Garvey and the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's days. Men comprehend their inner life by what they see and do. They come to Allah through ceremonies and forms, which is why your meetings are important. Attending your meetings so that you can repetitively hear your laws being uttered to you. It needs to be engraved in you. It needs to be that hammer that pounds in the truth and makes it a part of every part. And so, when you would make men know that sins are washed away by purity in life, a rite symbolic may be introduced. And water washed the bodies of the people who would turn away from sin and strive for purity in life. This rite of cleansing is a preparation rite, and they who thus are cleansed comprise the temple of purity. And you shall say, you men of Israel, hear, reform, and wash. Become the sons of purity, and you shall be forgiven. This rite of cleansing and this temple are but symbolic of the cleansing of the soul, which does not come from the outward show, but is the temple within. Now you may never point the way and tell the multitudes to do what you have never done, but you must go before and show the way. You are to teach that men must wash, so you must lead the way. Your body must be washed, symbolic of the cleansing of the soul. After Matheno taught all of this, our brother John's response was, why need I wait? May I not go at once and wash? He didn't say, well, I'm going to sit here for a little while and, be a little bit dirty for a little while. I'm just going to, cling to my sorrow of my mother passing. He wanted to go ahead and wash immediately after receiving these teachings. Matheno said, "'Tis well." And then they went down to the Jordan ford east of Jericho, just when the host of Israel crossed, when first they entered Canaan. They tarried for a time. Matheno the harbinger, and he explained, Matheno taught the harbinger, and he explained to him the inner meaning of the cleansing rite, and how to wash himself, and how to wash the multitude. And in the river Jordan, John was washed. Then they turned unto the wilderness. Now in Engedi's hills, Matheno's work was done, and he and John went down to Egypt. They rested not until they reached the temple of Sakkara in the valley of the Nile. For many years, Matheno was a master in this temple of the Brotherhood. And when he told about the life of John and his mission to the sons of men, the Hierophant with joy received the harbinger and was called the Brother Nazarite. For 18 years, John lived and wrought within these temple gates. And here he conquered self, became a mastermind, and learned the duties of the harbinger. So our brother John lived in this temple. He didn't just come to temple on Friday. He lived in this temple, and it still took him 18 years to conquer his higher and lower self. So who are we to come into the temple and think that we can just go out and have these degrees sitting here for 3 or 4 hours on a Friday and not really have all of these degrees? We have to come here and we have to master ourselves. We have to learn these laws. When we leave, we have to still be that temple of purity. We still have to read our lessons and consume these lessons. And I'll read one more thing from the Piscean text, also known as the Bible. And it's important to remember that we say that we live according to these 5 principles: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. But we have to remember that we can't even begin to practice these principles or put these principles into action until we purify ourselves. You can't have love without purity. Purity precedes love. And I'll read from the book of Psalms. I'll read the whole chapter, start at chapter 51. The book of Psalms, chapter 51. And it says, this is to the chief musician, a psalm of David, when Nathan the prophet came unto him, after he had gone into Bathsheba. Chapter 51, verse 1. Have mercy upon me, O Allah, I'll say Allah, according to thy loving kindness, according unto the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgression, and my sin is ever before me. Against thee only have I sinned, and done this evil in thy sight, that thou mightest be justified when thou speakest, and be clear when thou judgest. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward parts. And that's that hammer driving that truth home to make it a part of every part. And in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Or wisdom is that knowledge that Allah and man is one. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me to hear joy and gladness, that the bones which thou hast broken may rejoice. Hide thy face from my sins, and blot out all of mine iniquities. Create in me a clean heart, or a pure heart, or a heart that is fixed, a heart that is one, O Allah, and renew within me a right spirit. Cast me not away from thy presence, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me the joy of thy salvation, and uphold me with thy free spirit. It says, restore unto me the joy of thy salvation. In the book of Revelations, it speaks about, I think it's the book of Revelations where it speaks about a book being fed to someone. And at first, that book is as sweet as honey. And then once it hit their stomach, it was bitter. It was very bitter. So this truth, when you come into it, we're so excited, and it's new, and it's this great information. And then after a while, after you realize you have to do the work, then it gets bitter, and we run, we cower out. Then I will I'll start from verse 12 again. Restore unto me the joy of thy salvation, and uphold me with thy free spirit. Then will I teach transgressors thy ways, and sinners shall be converted unto thee. So this is important as well. It says, first, to restore unto me the joy of thy salvation, and uphold me with thy free spirit. Then will I teach transgressors thy ways, and sinners shall be converted unto thee. So first, we have to be pure in our salvation in order to teach other people and to redeem, quote unquote, sinners. We understand, we have our definition in the Moorish Science Temple of what a sin is, anything that dilutes to slavery. Deliver me from blood guiltiness, O Allah, the power of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of thy righteousness. O Lord, open thou my lips, and my mouth shall show forth thy praise. For thou desirest not sacrifice, else would I give it. Thou delightest not in burnt offering. The sacrifices of Allah are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. O Allah, thou wilt not despise. Do good in thy good pleasure unto Zion. Build thou the walls of Jerusalem. Then shalt thou be pleased with the sacrifices of righteousness, and with the sacrifices of righteousness, with burnt offering and whole burnt offering. Then shalt thou offer bullocks upon thine altar. And I'm going to go back to verse 18. It says, do good in thy pleasure unto Zion. Build thou the walls of Jerusalem, or build the walls of the city of peace. We're to build the walls of the city of peace. Until that's done, then we won't have, we won't be able to give whole offerings. We won't be able to give a piece of ourselves to Allah. Right now we're trying to give a piece of ourselves to Allah. We're not in that place of peace. We're not in our city of peace. So we have to build up the walls of that city of peace. And then we can give as a nation, as all other nations give and contribute to the family of nations. And I'll read from chapter 8. and then I'll yield the floor back to our brother chairman. I will read the entire chapter. It's not too long. It says, Jesus reveals to the people their sinful ways. In all the cities of Orisha, Jesus taught. At Katak, by the riverside, he taught the thousands of people, and thousands of people followed him. One day, a car of Jagannath was hauled along by scores and frenzied men, and Jesus said, "Behold, a form without a spirit passes by, a body with no soul, a temple with no altar fires. This car of Krishna is an empty thing, for Krishna is not there. This car is but an idol of people drunk on wine of carnal things. Allah lives not in the noise of tongues. There is no way to him from any idol shrine. Allah's meeting place with man is in the heart, and in a still small voice he speaks, and he who hears is still." And all the people said, "Teach us to know the Holy One who speaks within the heart, Allah of the still small voice." And Jesus said, "The holy breath cannot be seen with mortal eyes, nor can men see the spirit of the Holy One. But in their image man was made, and he who looks into the face of man looks into the image of Allah who speaks within. And when man honors man, he honors Allah. And what man does for man, he does for Allah. And you must bear in mind that when man harms in thought or word or deed another man, he is doing a wrong to Allah.
Islam.
If you would serve Allah who speaks within the heart, just serve your nearest of kin, and those that are no kin, the stranger at your gates, the foe who seeks to do you harm. Assist the poor and help the weak. Do harm to none and covet not what is yours. Then with your tongue the Holy One will speak, and he will smile behind your tears, will light your countenance with joy, and fill your hearts with peace." And then the people asked, "To whom should we bring gifts? Where shall we offer sacrifice?" And Jesus said, "Our Father Allah asks not for needless waste of plant, of grain, of dove, of lamb." And with this, I would say that in today's time, Allah is not asking us to do certain things. Allah is not necessarily asking us to teach if we don't have a pure heart. The first thing to do is make sure that your heart is pure. That which you burn on any shrine, you throw away. No blessing can attend to the one who takes the food from hungry mouths to be destroyed by fire. When you will offer sacrifice unto Allah, just take your gift of grain or meat and lay it on the table of the poor. From it an incense will arise to heaven, which will return to you with blessedness. Tear down your idols, they can hear you not. Turn all your sacrificial altars into fuel for the flames. Make human hearts your altars, and burn your sacrifices with the fire of love." And all the people were entranced and would have worshipped Jesus as a god. But Jesus said, "I am your brother man, just come to show you the way to Allah. You shall not worship man. Praise Allah, the Holy One."